What up, people? I'm the Godless Engineer, and today we're going over the 5 dumbest comments of the week. Now, we would also like to inform you guys about Reason, religiously educated atheists, secularists, and other non-theists. We are a coalition of atheists and other non-theists, obviously, where we tackle some of the current news happening and other topics every other Sunday. And I hope that you will join us on my channel, Godless Engineer. But now, let's get started with these dumbass comments of the week.
So now that because I always like to say this, now that we got that out the way, we can move on to the 5 dumbass comments of the week. Woo!
Yeah. And tonight I am drinking Angry Orchard Crisp Apple.
I've never even had this before. Somebody brought this to the party, so Pims. I guess I'm having that, and then I'm
Pims.
having this pink Moscato, so wine and some liquor tonight. So let's go ahead. I got a feeling this is going to be pretty bad, so let's go ahead and do this thing. Woo! All right, let's get it.
All right. This first comment went ahead and removed all of the name this time on this round, but I can prove that God is real. I have undeniable evidence beyond a reasonable doubt that gives 100% proof, and I'll give it to anybody. I'll give you the proof if you give me one sound reason I should not kill you first. Oh, he got us.
Boom! He just give this man a Nobel Prize, somebody, please.
I know,
Can,
right? We should
can
just
you believe what
call.
he's doing here?
What we should just call the committee now, and he'll get us $1,000,000, and then we'll all just have to agree that God exists. I mean, this is foolproof. One sound reason I should not kill you first. Gee, I don't know. Maybe don't be a dickbag. I mean, we're run by societal morals. Society dictates our morals. But not only that, but, we have our own empathy. So, I mean, I really don't think that he has the capacity to kill somebody. Like that's not just something that you can up and decide to do. I mean, if you're a sociopath or a psychopath who takes, joy in doing this kind of thing, killing somebody, that's not going to be something that you can just pray away, or something that is easily cured or whatnot. I honestly don't think that you can cure it. But the whole "give me one sound reason I should not kill you first." One sound reason. You don't have the fucking balls to do it. Or more accurately, I don't think that you have the capacity to do it. But if you do have the capacity to do it, God is not going to change that.
I see what he's getting at here. Okay, I'm sober, so I can grasp for his point. I'm reaching here. Okay, I think what he's trying to get at is we have to give a reason why murder is wrong, right? But that's not actually the issue. This actually comes down to the Euthyphro dilemma. If you want to get into morality, which is God the arbiter of morality, or does morality exist outside of God? Either way you answer that question, basically there's only 2 solutions. Either yes, it's arbitrary and it's based on God's whims, or there's a standard of good that exists outside of God, and therefore you don't even need God to be moral if that's the case. So basically, if that's what he's grasping for here, we don't have to give you any proof. Okay, first you need to solve that dilemma. Tell us where morality comes from. Okay, and then please tell me that you have a holy text prepared for us to comment on, especially the Bible or the Quran, because that won't be too hard to demonstrate that your God's morality is based on whatever he's feeling at that time. Behead motherfuckers, go to the neighboring town, slaughter everybody, steal all the women and the virgins. Any woman that is with child, slice that belly open, make sure that child dies. That type stuff.
Yeah. Well, if I can use a little bit of chess strategy here, trying to see the opponent's moves before they even make them. I think that he would probably come back with God definitely is the arbiter of morality, and you can only have morality if you believe in God. And then he'd follow that up with, well, the scripture. I don't know the exact verse or whatnot, but in the Bible it says that the law is written on all of our hearts, or belief in God is written on all of our hearts. And so that's pretty much, I think, where he would go with this conversation, is that he would say, well, of course, morality only exists because of God, and the law is written on our hearts. So you just deny God because you want to sin. You want to sin. You want to go and you want to masturbate. And you want to fornicate. And you want to look at porn, and you want to let homosexuals get married. I don't think any of those things sound bad, like, at all.
Right. Well, especially if he's talking about the Bible. I'm getting ready to read you a quote. This comes from my video called "Where Do You Get Your Moral Compass?" Because any debate on God and theology always seems to come down to morality. And the thing is, they will never admit that the standard of morality or the standard of good exists outside of God, because if that's the case, then they're admitting that God is not required for morality. So they're always going to choose that God, or what is it, divine command theory, that God gives these commands and they're good because he gives them. So here's a quote, so hoping that he's referring to the Bible here. Holy text, the Bible in this context, record many of God's immoral commands. He commands rape and murder several times in the Old Testament. For example, in Numbers 31, 1 through 54, God commands Moses and his army to kill every male among the little ones, to kill every woman that has known a man by lying with them. But all the women children that have not known a man by lying with them, keep alive for yourselves. Ooh, girl. The army comes back with 32,000 virgins after doing the will of God. There was some plowing going on, okay? Any sane, rational person will read that story and agree that an immoral command has been given. You know that going to the neighboring town and slaughtering everyone but taking the virgins for yourself is wrong in any context. This means that you are operating a standard of morality that exists separate from this God and his holy text. If your morality came from this objective moral agent, you would be forced to admit that this is good, since God thought that it was good enough to command it. This demonstrates that an objective moral agent, or at least in this case, your objective moral agent, is not needed in order to possess a moral compass. Boom! Dumbass of the week. Next.
Next up, we finished him off good. All right. You wanna read this one?
Yeah, here we go. Number 2. Notice how atheists will only try to make a creationist try to prove the existence of God to them, but they will never try to prove that God does not exist.
Oh man, this is a classic one, because it's just shifting the burden of proof is all he's doing. I mean, they haven't sufficiently proven that God is real to begin with, so there's no point in us trying to disprove that a God doesn't exist. I mean, that's not going to be able to happen. That's like, hey, prove unicorns don't exist. I mean, we have a common belief, that unicorns don't exist, but we can't sit here and prove that unicorns have never existed in time, right? So that's basically what he's doing here, is he's asking us to prove a negative. Now, considering that he's most likely Christian, we actually can disprove the Christian God, because he has his own little manual for testing him. I mean, I'm a software engineer. I know about fucking testing, okay? This God could not stand up to the requirements that he set out for himself in his own goddamn book. So we can prove that God doesn't exist, but if you want us to prove like a more deistic God doesn't exist, I'm sorry, you're committing a fallacy here, and so there's no point in me even addressing it.
We do need to say, though, for people that don't understand what the shifting of the burden of proof is, basically what's happening here, because we may have some theist watchers, you never know. Basically what's happening here is this person is making a claim that a God exists. And it's just like any other claim. Bigfoots exist. I was abducted by aliens. Werewolf. There's a werewolf in my closet. You know what I'm saying? Those are claims. Now, I would never say, if you said to me, well, you can't disprove You can't disprove there's not a werewolf in my closet. Like, come on, man. You got to apply this rationally and think logically about this. This is why it's called shifting the burden of proof. You're trying to get us to disprove it, and then you think that that's going to make a solid argument, but it doesn't. Like G said, do you believe in unicorns? I mean, there are thousands of people around the country that say they've been abducted by aliens and they've been probed, anal probed and all kind of other shit. So I'm just saying. I read a really great quote. I don't remember who said it, but it was, show me which standard that you disprove other gods like Allah, Krishna, Zeus, and I'll apply that same argument to your God.
Well, again, trying to think ahead about how they would respond to that, I would say they would probably come back with, well, Jesus lived and, he was persecuted and he died and he rose again. That's how I know he's real.
And then we would say, okay, you're making another claim here. Do you have any evidence? And they'd be like, yeah, the Bible, you need to read it.
Well, going back to what you said, if we use their same standard to try to disprove or prove other gods, then it would intrinsically prove those other gods, because it's like, well, my holy book says that this happened, so I believe it happened. It's like, okay, well, then the Quran says that all this shit happened and all this shit is real and that's reality. So I guess that really happened. I guess Allah exists as well as Yahweh, and then all Zeus. I mean, I'm sure he has some tablets out there, you know.
Well, here's the cool thing, because I love using Islam to combat that idea, because we actually have proof that Muhammad existed. We know about his battles, we know about all his massacres, we know about, all the sex slaves. We have historical references to these things. We don't have any historical reference to Jesus. In fact, every major historian that has not been proved to be a forgery, like Josephus, completely has no idea of what was going on at that time, if all of these things were happening. If people rose from the dead and walked into a major city, motherfuckers would be writing that shit down. Holy shit, zombie apocalypse just happened today in Rome. Like, come on, man. Do you really expect us to believe that there is no record of any of these things happening? No documentation. A man rising from the dead, angels coming down from heaven, all of these fucking miracles, feeding 5,000 people with 2 fish, or is it 2 loaves of bread and 5 fish? Whatever it is, I got it mixed up.
Yeah, well, actually, just because I recently did a video on this in my Did Jesus Exist series, there's actually 2 different stories with 2 different quantities of loaves and fish, which were actually copied from Elijah and I can never pronounce these guys right. Elijah and Elisha. They actually had their own separate stories of regenerating food. And so, but yeah, it was either like 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish, or like 4 loaves of bread and some fish. Like, they don't give an exact number, but basically there's 2 instances of that happening.
If the Bible can't even get it right, the book that you say is the infallible, inerrant, divine word of your God, why should I trust anything you say if the Bible can't even get it correct? If there's so many scientific and mathematical inaccuracies in that Bible, why would I even believe it?
Hey now, talk about mathematical inaccuracies. Okay, look, I got to tell you, I do not believe that pi is 3.14159 blah 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 blah. It is 3, motherfucker, because an old book told me so. Whatever.
This reminds me of that one guy, on that HBO special where he was like, well, if in the Bible it said 2 + 2 was 5, I'd have to go with that because that's what the Bible says.
Yeah, no, that was one of the best memes that I ever made, because I made it, and then I had Spider-Man and My Little Pony. I can't remember which one, but it's like, do you see this shit?
But seriously, here's the thing, though.
Yeah, it was Applejack. It was like, Applejack, do you see this shit?
If you're going to make a claim, back it up with some evidence. Let me give an example so that people can fucking get this. I can say that if you couldn't see me right now, imagine you can't see me. I say, I have a red shirt on. Guess what, motherfucker? Proof! Oh! That's how it works, okay? That is how it works. If you say there's a God, I'll believe it if you provide substantial evidence. I'll believe anything that has evidence for it. If you can give me enough evidence, I'll believe it. But you can't come back and tell us, hey, well, you got to prove that God doesn't exist.
Well, yeah, and to specify actual evidence, not like anecdotal evidence, not like, well, here's Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, to prove my shit. That's not evidence. No, you need actual evidence, and that would be stuff that exists outside of the source that makes the claim. So just to specify there.
And to get even clearer before they would even try to do that, I would mention that there are so many. We don't even have the original manuscripts. Okay, so what good is it to say? This is what Bart Ehrman says. What good is it to say it's the Word of God if we don't even have the original words that He inspired? If we can trace, if we can trace through the manuscripts that a text has been altered. For example, like one of my favorite stories, which is when Jesus saved the adulteress and told them, whoever's without sin, cast the first stone. We actually have a record. We can see how that story evolved over time and was added into the Bible. And there's a lot of passages and stories like that were added much later. If you read the footnotes in your Bible, you'll see that. That's the thing, man. And the oldest manuscript that we have, the oldest manuscript is still P52, I think. And that is even like, almost 100 years after Jesus supposedly existed.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I mean, I think that the only reasons we know that like Mark was written around 70 A.D. is not because we have the original transcripts. It's because of things that he said happened in it that couldn't have happened. Like he couldn't have written about it until they happened.
Right.
And, like one of them was the destruction of the Jewish temple in
Jerusalem.
The temple. Right, and so that happened around 70 A.D. That's how we know that it was written right after that.
I think we've got enough to stamp this guy dumbass of the week.
Oh yes, he is definitely dumbass of the week. Next,
that's such a classic comment. Like you get that all the time. The shifting the burden of proof.
And it never no matter what that you do, to try to convince them that they need a better argument, they're not going to get a better argument because they feel like their argument is so solid and that you're just denying the shit.
I find it's best to use the Socratic method, so just ask them a lot of questions.
Yeah,
usually you're going to come to some logical inconsistencies there.
Oh yeah, you try that with the free will argument, and you can back them in a corner pretty quick. I know a guy, I actually got a guy that had to choose between either free will or raping a child being a good thing that was designed by God, and he was like, "Well, I'll have to get back to you." Haven't heard from him since. It's been a year. But let's get to this comment right here.
You want me to read it?
No,
you got it. Go ahead.
there are 3 explanations as to why the universe is even here. 3 reasons, guys. 1, it has always been here, an eternal solid-state universe. 2, it come to exist via its own choice. It created itself.
Bro, okay. Do you even grammar?
3, someone or something put it here. Everyone must choose wisely.
Well, first of all, already we've arrived at what I'll call here the false trichotomy, because you've reduced it to 3 possible answers here, and if you're saying that is the only 3, you're saying there are only 3. This means you have exclusive knowledge that these 3 can be the only 3. Knowledge requires evidence. You have none, so it's a false trichotomy. Your answers are pretty good though. I like your answers, except for number 2. So the universe has either always been here. Okay, yeah, that's an actual pretty decent choice. It's come to exist via its own choice, created itself. I think you're giving an anthropomorphic idea to the universe. The universe is not an intelligent being, as far as we know. I mean, we could be wrong about that. Maybe it is just some kind of mind out there. But as far as we know, it doesn't have choices. It just does what it does, okay? or someone or something put it there. That's actually a good choice too. But if you want to say that, you need some evidence if you're going to make that the statement.
Well,
Everyone must choose wisely. To
I
that,
would.
I would say,
I'm
to
sorry.
that, I would say
Okay, no. Okay, you go ahead.
all right. We want to get this guy so bad. To the choose wisely, I would say Occam's razor, motherfucker. Okay, come on, man. We don't have proof of a god. We don't know that the universe created itself, but the universe is here. So anything you choose outside of the universe has always been here is special pleading.
Yeah, well, no, actually, I'd like to call a flag on the play, a fallacy flag, and that's begging the question on number two, because
Well,
that's exactly what it's doing. It says it come to exist via its own choice. It created itself.
um,
That assumes that it is a sentient thing, like the universe is a sentient thing, and that it made a choice, like you were saying before. But I mean that's begging the question because you're assuming that it is a thing, and so therefore it had to make a choice. You're assuming your conclusion in that. That's what begging the question is. It's when you state something, but the something that you state already assumes the answer to it, and so you phrase the question or the statement in a way that only leads you to that one conclusion.
yeah, I mean, we basically just killed this guy. That's like what? That's two sentences, because technically the list is part of sentence one, and that everyone must choose would technically be part of sentence one. So two sentences. We've already got like five fallacies. we, this
Well,
is some bullshit, man.
yeah, I don't know. Does this actually rival that last one we had that was basically a tweet? And it had like atheists, God doesn't exist, can't prove it. But then it has creationists. It's like the universe had a creator. Creation proves it, and it's like there were so many fallacies in that one. I think this one is a good contender for it.
It's a pretty good contender. But see, I was already drawing issues when he said there are only three.
Yeah.
Anything you say with those first four words or the first three words and a number, a numerical value, I'm going to call bullshit because by saying that, you're saying you have this exclusive knowledge that you know that these three are the only three. So if you already know that those three are the only three, you should be able to fucking tell us and prove it. Knowledge requires evidence. This is something that people don't understand when they say, well, I know God exists. You know? Well, how do you know? Oh, I know that I know that I know that the Bible was written by God.
Yeah. And he really does kind of whittle it down to maybe two choices, because the first one is patently false, obviously, because I mean it's been proven that there was a beginning to the universe. We know that already, so it's ridiculous to suggest that it's always been here. So that's really not a
Well,
choice.
technically, we don't actually know that, right? We don't
Well,
know that that was definitely the beginning. We just don't know what happened before.
well, yeah, okay, yeah, no, that's a good point. We don't know what happened before, but for all intents and purposes, whatever happened after that, um, didn't it, like whatever happened before doesn't really affect what happens after it. But
Right,
you're
because
you're
we have
right,
no idea what happened before. Isn't there's no way to know.
right. But I think what he's really kind of getting at here is that the universe in its current state, has always existed, and there's always going to be that state transform or whatnot at the Big Bang. Because it was in one state, and then the Big Bang happened, and it entered another state, basically. So I think that that's kind of what he's getting at here. Or at least that's what I feel like.
I think honestly, number two and number three could be combined into one.
Yeah.
Because it's really just two choices. I mean, we've went over this before when we talked to cosmological argument and things like that. The universe is here. We have proof of it, unless you're gonna play the solipsism game with us. If you're gonna play that, then we don't have time to waste on you. But because for all we know, the only thing that we know is that this reality is all that we know. And so it doesn't matter if we think we're a brain in a vat or something because we don't know that. So really, it's just two choices. Did the universe have a creator or not? Really, there's either a God or there's not one. And if you
Right.
say there is one, you need proof. We don't need proof to say that the universe could have done it itself. We don't know that either, but at least the universe is here, and we have proof of it.
Right. Exactly. Well, I think that we've got enough to stamp this guy
Dumbass
dumbass.
of the week. Next. Yeah, I'm buzzing right now. That Pim's got me good, man. What's that, like 50%? 25%.
All right.
Oh, look at this.
Take it, Aeolus.
The Bible is a peerless example of a book which has maintained relevance over thousands of years. Yes, it does contain many passages which are open to a variety of interpretations, but the main thrust of its message, man, that actually made me lose my spot in the comment. The main thrust of its message could not be more clear.
I think this guy's subconscious is working on him because thrust of its message. I mean, I would seriously expect after that to be like, and you're deeply filled up with the love of God, that white hot burning love.
Well, I mean, let's address his first claim here, which is the Bible is a peerless example of a book. Okay, that's false. By saying peerless, you're saying that there's no other book out there that has maintained relevance over thousands of years. To me, I mean, it depends on really what you want to define as relevance. I mean, we got the Epic of Gilgamesh. We've got some of the best literary works that predate the Bible. We've got the Quran. The Quran is an example of a book which has maintained relevance over thousands of years. So your first fucking sentence, we already have an issue with it. What do you say about that?
Yeah.
Peerless
No,
example.
well, okay. Look, it's never good to really base anything like as much as like the reality or the reality that we live in on a peerless book. Like that means that there's, like you were saying, that there's no book that could rival it or whatnot. But also, I mean, there's no book to question it. There's nobody to question it. And I really think that if you put something in that state, in this peerless state of not being questioned, you really do open yourself up to some pretty serious security holes, because then you end up having Catholic preachers that say, hey, this is how God loves you, and then he rapes a 12-year-old girl. And how can you argue with that?
Boy.
Huh?
Boy. Not
Well,
girl.
actually, the instance that I was referring to, it was actually a girl, and the guy had a Christ wafer, one of the Christ cookies, and he touched it to her privates and was like, "This is how God loves you," and then he raped her, and it's like, this is how God loves me? This is fucked up, man.
See, that's just a ridiculous example of how religion is used as a vehicle to do harm.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, let me say this too real quick, is that maybe religion is not the primary motivator, but it's definitely used as a vehicle to cause harm. Like that specific example you used.
Oh, yeah, exactly. No,
And if he really wanted to do that to that girl, he could have used any vehicle. But if we already know that religion is bullshit and it causes all these problems, we should remove that as a vehicle and just let him do that on his own whims, instead of saying that God ordained it or God approves it. Because then suddenly he's given this like pedestal where he can stand up there and say, I'm still righteous, or I'm still doing the right thing.
Well, yeah, no, and exactly. To play off of that a little bit here, me personally, I feel that the reverence that we have for religion in our society today, like the world society, I think that provides a shield that these types of people can get behind. And so they get behind this shield of religion, and nobody questions it because of the reverence that we have for religion. That's why it's not only a vehicle, but it's the perfect vehicle for you to do heinous shit. Because you can make the Bible like agree with you on just about anything. Like if you wanted to stone your adulterous wife, fuck, there's a passage for you in there about that. There's
Yep.
several preachers today that are wanting to actually go out there and drag homosexuals into the streets and shoot them in the head, all because of one passage or two passages in the Bible. Just because some sheep herders long ago that like to fuck sheep are saying, "Hey, don't fuck each other, but fuck the sheep over here. Just go do that. We'll kill the sheep, of course, but at least you get your jollies off that way." But now to go on, he says that the book which has maintained relevance over thousands of years, that is false, like demonstrably false, or demonstrably. Shit, I've had too much beer.
Hey, let me drop some knowledge real quick. So, okay, the Bible was translated into Latin, right? So roughly for a period of nearly 1,000 years, the only people that could read the Bible were clergy members or rich people who were able to learn Latin. So for one, okay, we can already knock 1,000 years off of it because none of these motherfuckers had the education or the skills to be able to read the Latin Bible. Not to mention, they also tried to fucking kill the guy. I can't remember if they actually killed him or not. I'd have to go back and research it, but I'm pretty sure they did. They killed the guy who translated it into Latin. And then for 1,000 years, it was just Latin and no one else could fucking read it. So really, has it maintained relevance for 1,000 years? At best, you could say maybe a couple 100 years, because most motherfuckers couldn't read it.
Well, I wouldn't even say for a couple 100 years. I think the only relevance that it has in today's society might reach back to the 1950s. I mean, just honestly, because I mean, if you think about it, in the Bible you have slavery that is promoted in it, right? And people used the Bible or used their religiosity to justify slavery up until we pretty much abolished it with Abraham Lincoln and the Civil War and everything like that. So I mean, there's the whole slavery issue, and then there's the whole subjugation of women. Up until the 1920s or so, I mean, it was seen as the woman's job to stay at home, and even as far as marriage goes, um, up until that point, marriage was never really about love or anything like that. It was about building stronger family ties. And a lot of the times, the married couples, they would have mistresses and lovers and whatnot, because they wouldn't be married for love or any kind of thing like that. No, they would be married so that they could form these family ties that allowed them certain perks, if you will. And so to say that it's maintained relevance over thousands of years, you don't have enough evidence, and not enough evidence even exists that would really solidify your foundation in that statement.
Yeah, I'd also like to move on to his next sentence, which says, yes, it does contain many passages which are open to a variety of interpretations, but the main thrust of his message could not be clear. First of all, the main thrust of his message, or of the Bible's message, seems to be, to me, that God fucks up a lot, okay? He fucks up, he puts a tree in the garden. It's the most appealing tree. It contains knowledge of good and evil, a character trait, or rather a skill of being able to discern good from evil that he has not given to the people he created, so they have no idea that they're doing the wrong thing. But not just that, then he goes on to drown the entire world, to kill all the people that were created as a result of him instituting the original creation. And then, even after that, it's still all fucked up, so he's got to send Jesus down to try to, get salvation for everyone else. That's the main thrust, is that God fucks up a lot. You can't read the Bible and deny this fact. I mean, it says very plainly there in the Bible that God regretted that he made humans. And so he drowned motherfuckers. He drowned infants. He drowned pregnant women. He drowned every fucking thing on the planet. Okay? And you go on to say that there's many passages which are open to a variety of interpretations. That's actually false. The Bible says that the Bible can stand on its own and that there is no interpretation other than the literal one. So even if what you were saying is true, is that it is open to a variety of interpretations, well, which one is the right fucking one? How can you say that this interpretation is better than any other interpretation? If we're really subject to that much interpretation, that wide array of interpretation, we might as well just chuck the whole thing out. I mean, if what anybody can say is right, like, hey, I can say this, but I can say the totally opposite thing and still have a valid point on both sides, we need to throw that thing in the trash, man.
Yeah. No, you know, one of my favorite memes, and I've seen it in several different forms, but it's basically where there's this horizontal chart, right, of all the denominations of Christianity and how Christianity has evolved over time. And then it gets to like the very far end, and it's like it has this one denomination, and it's circled, and it's like, and then we got it right. It's like everybody else is wrong. We got it right. We know exactly what God is spitting in his book.
It's just ridiculous, man. The main
Yeah.
thrust of the message could not be more clear. It's quite obvious. Okay, I'm actually gonna have to agree with that. God fucks up a lot, right? He he says he wants one thing and he does another. Thou shalt not kill, but I'm gonna kill all of these people. Okay. I think the lowest estimated death toll of God in the Bible is like what 2 million.
Yeah.
That's not even
He's
counting the flood.
he's a serious camper in Call of Duty, I'm telling you. Now,
He's that guy. He's that guy over in the corner, just chilling, waiting on y'all to walk by.
yeah, exactly. That's exactly what he does. He's just waiting like, "Oh, look, I know they're going to fuck up. They fucked up. Yep, kill them all." But no, I just thought of a really interesting meme that could be made, and it's like it's the whole Godhead meme, and it and it would say knows the exact future of what will happen forever, still manages to fuck up.
Well, okay, so that's another argument that could be brought up. I guess I don't know if I really want to get into it or not, but yeah, I really don't want to get into it with this comment. Let's just stamp this guy. Well,
All
I could
right.
go for 20 minutes about this dumbass of the week.
Nah.
I got to
All
give
right.
him a little more credit on that main thrust.
Yeah. All right. When I asked my atheist friend how universe formed, he said the Big Bang Theory. When I asked how humans occur, he said evolution theory. When I asked how the first living thing occur, he said, this is getting hard to read. He said another theory. I asked him what is the possibility of these things happening for a coincidence. He says multi-universe theory. These are all theories which are not intersect with my religion, Islam. Oh, okay. Well, at least you're letting us know. I really don't understand that people can believe all these theories which are not proved, but cannot believe one rational God. Okay, well, let's get one thing straight. It's not just one rational God. It is your particular God, Allah. That's one thing that I've really been harping on here lately is how these religious people, I mean, they say, "Oh, yes, our God is a great God" or whatnot, but it's like, no, each denomination has their own particular version of God. They're varied slightly, but each one has their own things that will, that appeases that God. And so you can't really say that it's the same God. I mean, to say that would be like, oh, God has different personalities with different groups of people. I really don't think that's part of Scripture.
Well, personally, I hate how the comment starts out. Because he starts out, he says, "When I ask my atheist friend how the universe formed," bam, if I was in a conversation with this guy, I would strike it down right there. I would tell you that atheist simply means I don't believe in a God. It doesn't mean I know how the universe formed. It doesn't mean I know anything at all. I just don't accept your claim of there being a God. So I would address that first. And he says, how the universe formed, Big Bang Theory. Okay, do you understand the theory? Imagine you're in the kitchen and you're making a cake, right? And you want to make this cake. All of the ingredients of this cake are theories, and it builds into reality, which is the fucking cake, okay? Excuse me. We have evidence for the Big Bang Theory. We've got the cosmic background radiation. We've got we thought we had the gravitational waves, but they've been predicted, so we're just looking for those gravitational waves. We haven't actually found them yet. We've got the expansion of the universe outward from a single point, meaning that the universe is expanding at all times. So the logical conclusion there is if the universe is expanding faster and faster, if you take the time scale back, obviously it would contract to a single point, right? So we've got that evidence. We've also got the red shifting of galaxies. We've got the fucking elements of stars. Older stars have different elements than the newer stars do because there weren't that many elements at the beginning when it happened. Then he goes on to say, I can't even hardly read this comment. I asked how humans occurred. He said evolutionary theory. When I asked how first, what is that first
living thing occur,
he said another theory. So probably abiogenesis. So we actually have the Miller-Urey, which was a highly controversial experiment, right? But we've also got the subsequent experiments that happened after that, okay? We've got evidence, man. We've got proof that this is possibly how abiogenesis occurred. We can't say for sure. We don't know for a fact, but we know that the building blocks of life could arise out of that state. We've also got evolutionary theory, which is backed up by mountains of evidence. You have to be a fucking idiot in 2015 to deny evolution. Even the fucking Catholic Church has accepted evolution since the 60s. Yeah, they just came out recently and were like, hey, yeah, we were kind of wrong about that. Evolution is true. But they've accepted it since like the 60s, okay? Are you telling me that you're fucking dumber than the Catholics? Who whisper some Latin words over a cracker and it becomes the body of Jesus? They whisper some words over some wine and that becomes the blood of Jesus. You dumber than these people?
Oh man, that transubstantiation's a bitch, isn't it?
Sure is. I can't even read the rest of the comment. What's the possibility of these things happening for a coincidence? No one said it was a coincidence. What's the possibility of it happening or the probability? We don't fucking know. We only got one universe. It's not like we've got 10 different ones we can study and know the probability of it happening that way.
Well, actually, I'd like to point out that the probability of all those things happening is actually 1. Like if you were to work out the probability, because it fucking happened, dude. That's how we know that it's 1. I mean,
that is true.
Yeah, but probabilities would work if we're trying to predict whether or not something's going to happen. Like if we were to predict, like what number of stars out there could potentially house life. That would be something that we could use a probability for. But if you're talking probabilities about how, this whole world came to be and whatnot, the probability is going to be 1 because it's already fucking happened. You're standing on it right now, dumbass. And of course, he's working off of Islam here, so of course he's advocating for for Allah, and which is kind of weird because you can read this, take out the Islam part, and it would work perfectly for Christianity. Which is another problem that I have, is that none of the religious arguments differ. The only way that they differ is which God they're arguing for. And it's like every time they've got to make this huge leap, and the huge leap that they make is saying, well, because I have this book, and it says that this particular God is the one that did all this shit. But there's no way to differentiate between all the different gods with a book.
Well, I like how he says, these are all theories which do not intersect with his religion. Okay, well, dude, you're figuring out that reality is different than what your preconceived notion of it is. So you can't fucking change reality. You probably need to change your preconceived notion of how it happened.
Well,
we have evidence. We have evidence of all of this. Okay, and if science, this is the only Muslim I've ever encountered who says that the science does not intersect with his religion. Because every Muslim that I encounter has always said, oh, the Quran says this. The Quran says this about science. The Quran actually says the Big Bang happened. The Quran says evolution happened. They are not stupid enough to deny the fact that they think that the Quran has scientific value. That's like one of the main arguments. I don't know how much you know about Islam, G, but the main arguments from Muslim apologists is that the Quran had the answers all along.
Oh, no, no, no. Yeah, I know exactly because I mean, in both Christianity and in Islam, that they have this set of scientific things that they say, oh, well, here's when science figured it out, but we knew it like 1,000 years beforehand, and it's always some kind of Nostradamus sounding fucking passage too. It quite literally is because it'll, like, for instance, just in Christianity, because that's right off the top of my head. There's the multiple verses that say, well, earth, or God made the earth round or something like that, and they're like, see, that predicted that we're a freestanding body in the middle of space and we're spherical. It's like, no, it said that it's round or it's circular. Circular is a two-dimensional object, dumbass. Did you not pass like geometry in fucking high school? When they said circular, did you think, oh, that means sphere, and you failed the fucking test?
Well, I mean, we shouldn't really be surprised when 1 in 4 Americans believe that the Earth is flat. We have
Don't say
so
that. About the same amount of people actually believe that the sun revolves around us.
it's so sad, man. But then, can you read his last sentence? I can't read that.
I
I
really
really,
don't understand that people can believe all these theories, which are not proved, but cannot believe one rational God. But see, that's just it. Theories are based on facts. I mean, the theories are built up. Theories are tested. I mean, that's one thing. It's scientific theories. That's what he's arguing against here, not just some wild hair idea that somebody pulled out of their ass one day and posted it up on YouTube. It's not like Darwin has a YouTube account and he's like, guys, I got this conspiracy theory that all animals came from one living organism. I'm not going to go out and research the shit. No.
well, Neil deGrasse Tyson said, I love this quote. He said that the beautiful thing about science is that it's true no matter what you believe. But I don't think that's the beautiful thing about science. I think that the most beautiful thing about science is that if you really believe that what you believe is true and you have substantial evidence, you can disprove the current models that we have. All you need to do is provide substantial evidence. If you really believe that your God is the one rational God, you have proof that he did all of this, you have evidence, all you need to do is submit that and get it peer reviewed. And if it's true, then the only option that we have is to accept it as true. I think that's the most beautiful thing about science, is that if what you believe personally is true, you can change everything that we know about the universe and reality. But the thing is, you never see these religious theologians becoming Nobel Prize winners. What do you see? Scientists. Some of them may believe in a God. It doesn't matter what they personally believe. Humans are capable of some of the most remarkable compartmentalization, so they can hold this belief in a God that he created the world 6,000 years ago and then keep it to the side when they walk into the lab and study all this shit that proves it to be, 4 billion years old.
See, that's what I don't get about these scientists, or just other general people that say that they always do science with God in mind. Like, that's totally negating the process of science to go in there with this predisposition that God does everything or God exists or whatnot. You have to, because like you said before, it's an objective thing. Like for you to prove it with the scientific method, to prove it scientifically with evidence and everything like that. I mean, you're basically showing us how reality exists right now, and you're doing it with evidence. And to go into the lab with this preconception that a God exists, that's going to prevent you from doing good science.
I agree with that, man. And I don't give a damn what field you work in. If you're not using the scientific method, you're not doing science. Okay? And I'll reiterate. The most beautiful thing about science is that if you think that what you think is right, you can prove it, man. You can overturn all the scientific models that we have. And if you think that's impossible, you need look no further than Einstein, whose theory of general relativity took over Newtonian physics, and how that has been in place for, what, 100 years now? That was today, right? 100 years today?
Yeah, I think so.
100 years. You know, he completely overturned what we think about everything. He challenged everything that we thought, and he fucking proved it with evidence, and it got peer reviewed, and people were like, hey, this model more accurately fits the universe. So if you've got a model that more accurately fits the universe, present that motherfucker. Get that bitch peer reviewed, okay? It's not like we're gonna sit over here and be like, hey, he's got all the evidence, but we're gonna deny that shit. That's what religious people do, okay? We don't do that. We take the evidence, and we take the evidence and let the evidence lead us to where it goes. Okay, so dumbass of the week.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Dumbass of the week. And, you know, I'm pretty sure that because it's Islam, we're definitely going to get death threats and be told that we're going to be disemboweled and burned in hell. But, you know, that's just how the cookie crumbles for Islam.
Well, you know, Allah has sealed our hearts from the beginning of time so that he can punish us in hellfire. That comes from the second book of the Quran. You should
yeah.
probably read it sometime.
Yeah. I mean, come on. Who can disagree with that? We're all going to be burning in hell, and Allah wanted us there to do it. I mean, he's a sadistic fuck like that.
Somebody's got to take the fall, right?
Yeah, man. I'll take a pineapple up the ass for
Allah was like, hey, it ain't gonna be me. It ain't gonna be me, motherfucker. It's gonna be you. I'm God.
All right, well, that's all for this week on the 5 dumbass comments of the week. I am the Godless Engineer. You can find me on my channel, Godless Engineer, here on YouTube. And I'm right here with my good friend, Alis, here, there. I don't know, whichever way it fucking is on camera.
Great friends, man. You know, we've been doing this podcast thing it's been over a year now, right?
I think so, man. I mean, because I remember us starting it like right around winter. Yeah, I think it was winter last year. Is when we started the whole podcast deal. So it's coming up on a year.
Yeah, we should probably look into that and celebrate our first anniversary or whatever. But hey, subscribe to the members of Reason, religiously educated atheists, secularists, and other non-theists. That would be me, Aeolus, aka God Works Out, GE, the Godless Engineer, and Dieter Lucum. And tune into the live stream every Sunday night. Well, not every Sunday night. I'm so used to saying that.
Yeah.
It's every other Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern. Hey, and may reason forever outweigh religious stupidity.
Great.